Welcome to our Sacred Wisdom podcast, and it feels like ages since we were last here.
Hello, and welcome to our podcast, guys. Today we have Jude, Rika, Mary, Antonio, Renee, Poppy, Jeff, and Simon has joined us to say a few words as well.
We've created today's podcast as a Christmas and New Year's treat. We had planned to do this podcast before Christmas as a special Christmas podcast, but we had to cancel then again in the new year. And it feels like such a special podcast. We were determined to bring it to you as soon as possible. And we'd like to start with a message from our special guest, Simon.
Thank you. Well, yes, it was supposed to be before Christmas, and I had all my words ready to say to everyone. But it's really good that everyone has really pulled together. So I want to thank all of you for giving an aspect to CC that everyone should and hopefully does take heed of and practice themselves. CC is not just an intel board. Certainly isn't. It's actually about spiritual topics. It's about empowering and giving people the room to develop and find themselves. And that wouldn't be possible without you guys, simply because you've brought your own expertise and your own commitment to it. So really, I'm here just to say thank you. It's been a wonderful thing. And obviously, I've got to thank Becky and, of course, Chris for the two who worked together to really sort of drive this and push it forward. And, look at the times and the world that we live in, how wonderful that we have this to, take note of and to do something with, to try and counteract all the craziness that's around us. So really, all I wanted to do here today was not talk about projects, not talk about Intel, but talk about you guys and what you're doing and how really helpful it is to the members who actually can escape from the madness and do the work with you. So a big thank you to everybody who's made this possible. Thank you. Now I will be around. I'll be out of the shot, but I will be around. Okay.
Hopefully to help look after the dogs.
To look after the dogs, but I also want to hear the famous singing of Jeff. You see. Right, go on.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'd like to share a few words that I wrote in my Telegram group, and it's appropriate for our New Year's podcast. With every challenge comes the opportunity for growth, the opportunity to see things differently from before, and to step out of our previously fixed way of thinking. It's at collective times of great challenge that humanity takes its bigger steps forwards. I really feel that we are living in such times. We have had so many great challenges to overcome over the past few years, and many of us here have become awakened and aware so much to what's been going on behind the scenes, both bad and good. Remember that we all have a part to play. We all have our own unique gifts and qualities to develop and share and use for good. There's so much that we can do individually and as a collective to make this world a better place for all, humanity, animals, plants, and Mother Earth. Look into your heart and ask, what is my greatest joy? Ask, how can I help? Listen to the whisperings of your soul and feel the connection to your inner strength, to God, Creator, Source. Spend time in this precious space and learn to feel what divine love and grace and joy feels like. Make peace with yourself and get to know the divine being that you truly are.
Thank you. Well, Becky, those words were beautiful and inspiring. So today, our podcast will be in 3 sections. We are going to have heartwarming stories from Connecting Consciousness, a spiritual topics review with a very special presentation, and Christmas and New Year's stories of magic. And so we'll start with the heartwarming stories from Connecting Consciousness. And I'd like to hand to Poppy and Jeff to share their story first.
Good rising,
Good.
everyone.
Yes. Hello. Good to be with all of you. And this actually starts at the beginning of the holiday season. Poppy and I decided to do a Thanksgiving call for any of those folks who didn't have family to be with. And we thought it'd be great to have just an opportunity to gather and have our CC family be together. And during this call up, a woman presented herself having some very big challenges that Poppy's going to chat about here.
So we had two different calls that we had, and during one of them, several of our team was on the call, and a woman shared that it was on her birthday, 2 days before the call, 3 days before the call, she had come to find that a friend who was living with her had transitioned, had passed on her couch, and it was on her birthday. She was devastated. And she was trying to find that hope, that glimmer, that nugget of goodness that she could latch onto. And in like fashion, as so many CC family members are, they rose to the occasion. Somebody in the chat said, "Could we offer a prayer? Can we do anything for this lady?" And so we did. We offered a prayer, and because many of the participants had their first name only, we didn't know where in the US this person resided. And so we, through other regional coordinators and the Carolyn, the coordinator in Colorado, they figured out where she lived. And no sooner had like a day or two passed, and they had reached out to this woman. They gathered their team in Colorado, any members that wanted to help. And this woman had been homeless prior to Thanksgiving, and she had just found this place, and the only piece of furniture she had in her home was a couch, was a sofa. And obviously, since her friend had passed on it, she didn't care to keep the couch. So the team in Colorado found furniture, found moving trucks, found people to help, and they like furnished her entire apartment. She had more than she ever had before, and it was such a beautiful outpouring. And I think what makes CC so special is that there's just this unspoken need to give grace and love, and they just gave it. Nobody asked, like, what should we do? It just was sort of like understood, and
it just presented itself just out of the goodness of everyone's hearts and desire to help.
And I was just going to share that yesterday we had a CC gathering with 34 people. We had them from all over the state arise, and it was this collective of coming together. And again, I say the unspoken, nonverbal sort of expectation that is just inherently in every single CC member that we come across. So I just wanted to say that it was a beautiful outpouring, and that's what CC people do. So thank you for letting us share.
Thank you so much, Poppy and Jeff. That's absolutely beautiful. And over to Rike.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Hello, nice to see you. And I would like to reinforce what Poppy said, because it is really, once you say you're a CC member, everybody takes you in as family. You're not even asked. It's just like, okay, come here, So yeah, my story is from last year, January almost. And we have a member who is a truck driver, international cargo. So he drives whole Central America. And okay, I tried to make the story short, but it's, so he went to Guatemala, cleaned his truck, got overheated, and had a cold shower, and he started to feel pain in his legs. Here they say they spasm. Yeah, this is something very common here. So he felt very bad, and he had to drive 3 days to go back to Panama. So when he was in Panama, so let's say he is almost 60, his mother is 80. So she took him like old-fashioned and took him to a healer here in Panama. So the healer, what she does is she prays on him and does the crosses in the hands, in the back somewhere. Yeah. So this takes like 10 minutes. And then he is told not to go outside at 6 o'clock in the evening, in these wee hours. Yeah. To stay warm, not to shower till the next day. But he had another cargo. So he did everything he was told not to do. So he went out and he got his truck and he showered, and then he went driving again from Panama to Costa Rica. So on his way, he called me and he said, I'm feeling bad. And I said, sure, you feel bad, you know, so just go and hydrate yourself. Once you're in Costa Rica, see a doctor, something. So then when he was in Costa Rica, he called me and he could hardly speak. He didn't breathe. Yeah, you really, it was. So I said, there's a friend with you, something, you know, where are you? What's happening? And he said, no, I'm alone here in the parking space with my truck. I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, hold on. And then I contacted a member in Costa Rica. So both didn't know each other. They never heard of each other, but I contacted this woman and I said, her name's Lily. I said, Lily, please do something. Yeah. Call a doctor. Or so she called the doctor. So he didn't want to go into a hospital because this was still with all the restrictions, all the things. And I said, I need a doctor who is a bit more open-minded, yeah? And so she called the doctor went there, and the doctor said, I have to put him into a hospital because he has, okay, no, I'm bad with numbers, but something like only 30% of oxygen. She wanted him, she said, if I leave him here, he's not going to survive. There is no way. So she called the ambulance, they brought him to the hospital, and he was 10 days hospitalized, yeah? And then he was good, he could go home. So the thing is, Lily, she called immediately a healer in Mexico and had him faith healed from this spirituality we live here day to day in Latin America, right? So she called a healer in Mexico. He did what he had to do. I wanted to give some money to pay the doctor. Nobody wanted to see my money. Nobody wanted to see Elias's money. They all came up and paid for the doctor, paid for the ambulance. So then the insurance paid for the hospital. And and then there was the thing to contact his family. So I remembered that his cousin is also a member in CC. So I called her here in Panama. She called all the other people. So the end of the story is just, he is still driving his truck back and forth in Central America. And we all bonded even more. Yeah, so the people immediately stepped in, immediately helped. There was no question about it. It's almost the same like with the story Bobby and Jeff. It's just a CC member needs help and everybody's there. Nice. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rika. That's a beautiful story. And now I'd like to hand over to Mary. She has a bouncy story for us.
That's quite an intro. Thank you, Chris. Great seeing everybody in all the times of the day, and I'm just so happy to be here. In Alabama, I met him. One of our members came to meetings, and I met him in June of last year. And very quickly, he tells beautiful stories from a very religious family, and his name is Mark. He's the middle of 7 children, so he says he's always been the mediator to get everybody to keep going along and everything else like this. But he tells these wonderful stories, and one of the ones that he told very soon after we met was that about 15 years ago, his sister was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. And they had to, very religious family, they prayed a lot, but they had to cut out they had to stop her answering her phone and answering the doorbells because people were doing stupid things and it would upset her. And what they did is, like, she would answer her phone from a childhood friend that she'd recognize the name, but the friend would say, hey, I haven't seen you since high school, but I need to come see you before you die. And really stupid things like this that would very much upset her. And her oldest daughter, came to her one day and handed her a bouncy ball. I have one here, it has little stars in it, or they come with glitter, or they can just be a pretty bright ball, but they bounce like crazy. And her mother looked at her like, what in the world? And the daughter says, Mom, you got to bounce back. You just got to bounce back from it. And what he tells is that this can affect anybody. It doesn't have to be a cancer diagnosis. It could be a loss of a favorite fur baby, or it could be a loss of a job, or just somebody spoke nasty to you at when you're out shopping, anything like this. We all got to bounce back from it. And this has become almost a mission with the event hosts and the team members in Alabama, is sharing this story. And the reactions from the CC members and from family members are just absolutely amazing. I had a situation this last year where my brother-in-law passed suddenly. He was diagnosed with cancer, and 5 weeks later, he was gone. And instead of stars in the ball, I found some in Mark's selection that had little glitter hearts in them. And I brought 4 of those with the little glitter hearts to his wife and 3 grown children, and gave them at the services, and they had something to hold on to that it was small, they could keep in their pocket. And they told me afterwards that that was the only tangible thing that they had gotten from it that they could hold on to. And I told them, I said, I think the hearts in there is a little bit of your dad's heart, because he helped Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and he had scout troops, and he helped people all his life. And that was what he did. He'd see somebody who needed help, and he'd help them find some way to do that. And I said, this is a little bit of your dad's heart to help you realize you have to bounce back from having this sudden loss. And the other thing is during, a friend of mine had a tragedy in her family, and she took the bouncy balls and gave one to each member of the family. And I think the best message I got from that was the fact that her 8-year-old grandson came back to her a couple of weeks later and said, I had a tough day at school, and I was real upset by some things that happened, but I went and I found my bouncy ball and I played with that, and I knew I could feel better. And I figured, when an 8-year-old can take the message of you got to bounce back and can understand and work with that, that was just so tremendous to me, that it's a message that fits everybody everywhere. And the final thing I wanted to say is, we had a member in one of our groups, and he'd been gone for a while, but he just started coming back and finding his family, his CC family again. And we always start off our meetings with like a prayer for those members of the group who can't be there, who may need a little extra help or something like this. And he interrupted us at the start of that meeting. And he said, my family doesn't understand why I'm here today. He said, because my dad's been going downhill, and this morning we got the call, and at 10:30 this morning, my dad passed when we went in the hospital, and we were there. And he said, but I had to leave them and come here because I knew I had the support in the CC family. And he knew that we'd have the balls there, and the bouncy balls. And he collected bouncy balls that he could take back to each member of his family that had been at his dad's bedside when he passed. And these are things that we've been sharing here in Alabama, and the people come to the meeting and they hear this message. One lady reached out and reached for one when I finished telling the story. And I said, do you know somebody who needs one? She says, yes, I do. And I emailed her the next day and I said, I hope you're okay. I didn't mean to, totally, blow your mindset and everything, because she was all composed until I told the story of the bouncy balls. And she says, no, she says, it was really beautiful. She says, I really needed that. She says, my husband of 34 years passed this past June, and I'm just learning now how to get back into life and to get out and see people and meet people. And this is the first time I was able to come to a CC meeting, and I met like-minded people friends that I could talk to, you all understood. She says it's the best thing that had happened to me. So she that's our story. We share in Alabama that we got to bounce back.
Oh, Mary, that's absolutely beautiful. And the first lady that you were talking about who had the stage 4 liver cancer, did she survive?
Yes, she is still here. I have asked Mark several times if I could write up his article and the story and get people to, like get it copyrighted so that he gets credit for it. And he says, no, he says, we really just want to share the story and the message. And all he asks is that when we have another success, that I tell him so he can share it with his sister and her family and their daughter who's still enjoying the bouncy balls.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Mary. Wonderful.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, over to Antonio.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Hi, Becky. I have a different story because it's actually my story with CC. So I took some notes and I'm going to read them if you don't mind. But first, I want to say something that this is a statement. Simon has changed my life forever. And my story starts back on the 4th of November 2020, when the US election results started to shift. This was totally unexpected for me, as I was pretty sure that President would easily win the elections. In order to try to understand what happened, I started looking for information everywhere, hoping that all the rigging would be fixed and declared as the winner. Then on the first days of January 2021, I found out a daily update video while searching a YouTube link. Until that moment, I never heard about Simon, but the information and the way he addressed his audience and his topics caught my attention. I was so fascinated that I decided to share the video with some of my closest friends. One of those, the pastor of the Baptist church I belong to, immediately called Simon as an imposter due to his videos about ETs. A few days later, I found out about Charlie Ward's videos, and slowly I found more information about other truthers whom I avidly started to follow because of the need I felt for information. Sometimes afterwards, I ran into CC, but it took me about 2 months to make the decision of becoming a member. This happened on the 1st of March, 2021. While all this was happening, I realized that my passion for playing the piano was slowly fading. Today, I completely understand why this happened, as the time needed for getting information and do my research was not compatible with playing the piano as a professional. That path was a lonely one, as my closest friends and relatives did not believe the information I shared with them. At the same time, they were implying I was getting away from the right path, which was the one of the Baptist church. This was the pastor's main concern. I was paying attention to liars and tricksters. So my relationship with the church and their pastor was gradually worn down, and I ended up by leaving the church. On 17th of August 2021, I received an email telling that CC Portuguese branch had been created. I quickly became an active participant in the Portuguese branch via Zoom and through other initiatives, trying to assist coordinator as best I could and knew how. Later on, she invited me to replace her. This happened in January 2022. 2022 was an important year as far as the Portuguese CC branch is concerned. The number of new members increased by 30% approximately. More than 40 Zoom meetings were accomplished. And we had 4 live gatherings, the first being in Lisbon on the first week of March, and the last one being also in the Lisbon area on the first week of December. In short, CC has brought me everything I had been looking for a very long time. a group of fantastic people who have rapidly become my true family, not only nationally, but also worldwide, and the true meaning and purpose to my life. So now I regularly participate in Zooms made by other CC groups. I have been attending the prayer circle for several months now, and being recently invited to belong to the mentoring coordinator group aimed at helping new CC coordinators made me realize how blessed I am to being able to help other people. I've always loved interacting with other cultures, and all these initiatives have made me grow, love, and respect myself, becoming more open and available to others. Therefore, I'm going to work further on in order to make CC Portugal expand and grow and prepare myself with the other members' help for the challenges we'll be facing very soon, as well as the tasks we'll be carrying out in the future. And this is my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Appreciate you sharing your personal story with us today. Okay, I'd like to hand over to Jude.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and hi, everyone. Great to be here. I guess my story is about an initiative that was started by one of our members in Australia called You Being Me, an initiative that started as a desire to be able to reach out to family members or loved ones in other places away from us. So that could be across the country, it could be around the world. And so Sue, who was the lovely member who began this, put this into place towards the end of last year. And our Australian coordinator was the first person to use her service. And it's a free service. It's not something she charges for. But she asked that, and so I should say also that You Being Me is formed by angels. So people who volunteer to be an angel in the organization and to deliver something on behalf of another.
And also it was set up, when you said it was about the end of last year, I think you mean the year before, because it's been going for, I'd say, a good few months, if not a whole year. And it was to cover some of the time when there were some big lockdowns, so that people were just unable to visit family or dear friends in other states and regions. So the You Being Me was able as a way of connecting and giving something in person, you know. So I love that. And I know that that's being trialed out in the USA, in some states as well, and is having some lovely results. So thank you very much. Thank you to all of our presenters and speakers here for sharing your heartwarming CC stories. So in our next part, Chris, Jude and I will move into a discussion about our monthly spiritual topics. Chris and I write these topics and present them to our coordinators to facilitate discussions with our Connecting Consciousness members. These topics are not teachings, but instead they're presented as inspired ideas to prompt deep inner reflection. We design each topic as a tool for self-reflection to help people contemplate and find inner wisdom to answer timeless questions such as, who am I? Why am I here? What is my mission? And how can I serve humanity? We recently finished writing our 12th topic called 0 Point and Balance, and we're on a short break now as we compile the topics into a spiritual book that will be offered this year, titled Sacred Wisdom, A Personal Journey Through Spirituality. In our podcast today, we want to offer a glimpse into these topics through a short discussion, and then we'll share a special slideshow that Jude created from the content of our spiritual topics. First of all, we'll start by sharing our favourite spiritual topic, and we would like to invite Jude to join in the spiritual topic discussion along with us. I'll hand to Chris to share her favourite topic. Chris.
Okay, thank you, Becky. And I'd like to start by sharing that I love all of our topics. It's been a lot of fun bringing these topics to life, and each of them have their own beauty and significance. But to pick just one, I would pick our topic. It was one of our earlier topics, raising your vibration. I like this topic because it feels as if we're here on Earth at this time to raise our vibration and to help raise the collective vibration. In writing this topic, Becky and I touched on how the universe is made up of frequency, and this is what many call vibration, and that our lives are shaped by a series of vibrations that are created by our thoughts, our words, our feelings, and our actions. And as we have the same thoughts and feelings over and over, patterns emerge and we attract more of the same. But we are very powerful beings and we have the power to change our lives. Consciously changing our thoughts and matching emotions and actions can really change our lives. And in doing this, it positively impacts humanity. I believe as ancient souls who are right here, right now, we need to be aware of the significant impact we have on the collective. And so we need to be aware of our vibration and what we're offering. So this doesn't mean to be artificially positive all the time. Most of us would like that, but it usually doesn't happen that way because we all have our moments. And most of us have experiences and at some time or another that may not feel positive at the time, but are beneficial for our growth. And also, there's a lot of people who are doing clearing individually or collective traumas right now. So what it does mean is to be thoughtful, aware, and fully present with our thoughts and our feelings, because we want to be conscious of what we're offering to the collective. And it's so important right now because this is such an important time for humanity as we move toward a bright and beautiful future. So thank you. And I'd like to hand to Becky to talk about her favorite topics.
Thank you, Chris. And like you, I've really enjoyed the whole journey and process of creating the monthly spiritual topics. And soon we're going to start creating the next full year of topics. I love how each month flows and develops from the previous month's topic. And my favorite topic actually was covered in 2 consecutive monthly spiritual topics, in the honoring emotions and vibrations and within the intuition and discernment topics. And this was the concept of our 4 bodies, the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual bodies, which are all connected. So within the honoring emotions and vibrations, a topic, from a spiritual perspective, many believe that humans are made up of spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical bodies, all combined. Part of the human experience is to balance our 4 energy bodies, which can be easier said than done. Our physical and mental bodies may contend with illness, and our physical, mental, and emotional bodies can encounter low frequencies such as negativity and fear. At times, life on Earth in a physical body can be a real challenge for our spiritual soul, which may feel dimmed or disconnected from source, although it never is, it just may feel like that. Within the intuition and discernment topic, we discussed that many people think intuition is a gut feeling or the little voice in one's head. Some ancient wisdoms believed that intuition is composed of 3 centers. The Celtic and Taoist traditions consider 3 key centers in the body, 1 in the abdomen, 1 in the heart, and 1 in the head. Our higher or divine self encompasses all 3 centers. Chinese traditions identify dantians, which also represent 3 centers in the body. The upper dantian Shen is tied to the 3rd eye. The middle dantian Qi is located in the center of the chest, and the lower dantian Jing can be found below the navel. Regardless of which tradition you prefer, we can connect with our divine self through any of these 3 centers. The gut intuition aligns with our physical body. Heart intuition aligns with our emotional body, and our head intuition is aligned with the mental body. And to develop your intuition to the best degree, you need to have all 3 centers, the gut, head, and heart, in alignment and communicating with each other. So while spiritual traditions have long recognized that the gut, heart, and mind are all intelligent centers in the body, science is beginning to accept this as well. Scientific research classifies all three, the gut, heart, and head, as functional brains and indicate that there are complex neural networks in all three. This awareness has important implications from a wellness perspective. And what I also find really fascinating is that good bacteria are connected to our intelligence, heart-centeredness, and intuition. We do hear a lot about good gut health, but studies have also shown this doesn't just apply to the gut. Good bacteria concentrates in areas where nerves are very intense and have also been found to be high in concentration within the heart and the brain. So finally, subconscious conversations occur inside us with ongoing communications between our gut, heart, and head. Intuition is not just a mental challenge or just a gut check or just going into one's heart. Intuition is strongest when there's a clear communication between the gut, heart, and mind, which basically are our physical, emotional, and mental bodies. The spiritual body connects with and encompasses all of these. When there is a clear connection between all four bodies, you create a stronger alignment with your divine self, and so it's easier to tap into your intuition and discernment. And this is a topic that I find really fascinating. Would love to see more research into it because I think there's loads more that we can learn. And now I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Chris for being amazing to work with. Thank you, Chris, for all your hard work and dedication. And I've loved every minute of working with you and look forward to continuing to do so in the years to come. Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce Jude, one of our Australian coordinators, who's responsible for facilitating the monthly spiritual topics. Jude is very creative in the way she presents these and has generated a lot of positive discussions and also great appreciation for the work that she does with the spiritual topics. Jude, thank you. And I'll hand you over to you to share your favourite topic.
Thank you, Rebecca. And like Chris, there are many, and I couldn't help but think about going into a gelato store and having to choose a gelato flavor in a store and realizing that it's very difficult. But more importantly than the gelato, I realized that these topics actually offer a navigation through life at a time when humanity is shifting from one of perceived victimization to one of personal authenticity, authority, and sovereignty. When the how to support others awakening, which I've chosen as my favorite topic, came through, was introduced, our members were already in the conversation, which shows that this happened month after month after month, that when a new topic came out, we were ready for it in some form. There was a lot of anxiety with our members at the time. Our perspectives were shifting, and we knew responses such as "I told you so" or "I've been trying to tell you that" were just not going to work. We had learned that a triggered response from us was going to invite a triggered response in return. So we knew we needed a different approach, and this topic gave us a space to delve into our inquiry and to find some direction in going forward. Two of our members, one a psychologist, another one who was a team member, put together a podcast, and it was in a conversational form with the two of them on this very topic. And the deeper skill of listening became an important aspect throughout this month. In this way, we in Australia merged what was going on for us with the topic itself, and it became a really rich topic to talk about throughout the month. The thread from the beginning of all the monthly spiritual topics has been to learn to live or to be in an open-hearted space. And throughout the year, we talked through the topics. We talked about compassion, empathy, intuition, and discernment. And in fact, one of our members described compassion as listening with love or listening through the heart. So in December, when we were talking about this conversation and we talked about the awakening process, which allowed us to acknowledge the value we hold through love in our close relationships and humanity as a whole. We learned to listen, we learned to be curious, to ask questions, and to wait for when the other is ready. Through listening and using our own intuition, we knew we would be guided on how to respond when the time came. early on, I knew I wasn't present to teach our members. I was put in this role to help them remember who they are and what they already know and what they already knew. And so these topics are never always about the other. They are about our internal journey through life. Acknowledging that we need to have these conversations with ourselves is so important. And so I invite that in at the same time as honoring and acknowledging each member as a unique and valuable part of the whole, and while in service to the other. And creating this PPT, this PowerPoint, allowed me to embrace the sacredness of this journey as we went through each month. And yes, I really hope it's shown. I've shown this through the slides. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jude. And I'd also like to go back and thank Becky for the lovely comments about me. And the feeling is very, very mutual. And I wanted to share that I recently went to a local CC gathering, and one of the people there was kind of awestruck when I told her that I worked with Becky, and it was very cute, and it did remind me how blessed I am to work with such a beautiful soul. So thank you, Becky. And then Jude, thank you for all you do to share the spiritual topics with the CC coordinators and members. Your recap there was really beautiful and spot on. And I know there's coordinators who do that worldwide, but Jude, you have a little larger role as it relates to the spiritual topics. And so you also created these slides that we're going to show in a few minutes. They're just amazing. It's a real treat. When we shared these slides with CC coordinators a few weeks ago, they were just so amazed. The slides were so well received. And Jude, there was incredible love and appreciation for you just pouring that out from these. And so you touched on the slides a little bit, but can you tell us more about what inspired you to create these?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I absolutely love interacting with our members. I love these topics. I love the Zooms. I love getting them into conversation. And at the time, last year, as the topics were becoming bigger, and then we were going into deeper dives, I felt that reading the handouts, which is what I'd started to do, I felt it was becoming bland, and I was looking for a new way actually to introduce the information, a new way to actually introduce it and get conversation going. And so I've been talking to our South Asian coordinator, Sunitha, and she had shared with me how she used PowerPoint herself for some things to introduce. And so actually what happened to me was, it was like a light bulb had gone off, like I'd been looking for something, and this is exactly what I've been looking for. So when I started to dig into it and work with them, I realized that I absolutely love doing it. It was just amazing to put them together, to go through it and put them together, put the images together. I certainly wanted something visually stimulating I wanted something visually stimulating as well as listening, and I wanted something that was actually going to invite, through stimulation, was going to invite response through the members. So that was really how it began. It was something that I wanted to be able to produce for others, and in doing so, I just fell in love with doing it. And I spent days, when I do a monthly spiritual topic, I actually spend a couple of days putting together a slide for just, a short presentation, let alone what I did for this one. But it's my absolute joy to do it. And I'm just been so thrilled and overwhelmed with the response of it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jude. I can tell, I think we can all tell that there's been a lot of joy put into that, because we receive a lot of joy when we watch it. So that's wonderful. And now we're going to share the spiritual topic slides that Jude created. If you're listening to our podcast and not able to watch at this time, please enjoy the beauty of the music, which is the full version of our podcast introductory and closing music. And we'll be back with you after the slideshow. The music is titled The Future Ancient Now, which was composed by Nathan Moore. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. enjoyed the slideshow, we would like to wrap up with 3 stories to bring in the magic of Christmas, new beginnings, and a new year. And so my story, it happened 30 years ago, but it's still so clear in my memory. And it was a real moment of magic for me. It's one of those moments when time stands still and everything seems to just slot into place. You know, if you can imagine, like, we live life often at a fast speed, and we're distracted, and we go through motions, we go through chores and so on, and we're not always fully present. And then when something happens to just make you stop and be fully 100% present in the moment, and it's almost as if every dimension has just clicked into place, and you feel just such an enormous sense of magic, God, beauty, just everything all in one go, and it's awe-inspiring. So it was Christmas Eve about 30 years ago, and I was at home with my parents and my brothers. I must have been about 21 or 22 years old, and it would have been about 4 to half 4 in the afternoon, and my dad and my brothers and I decided to go out for a walk, a Christmas Eve walk, and it was already dark by then. And it was a magical Christmas to start off with, because there was a really thick frost, and it was really sparkly, and it was cold, so that when you breathed, the steam came out of your nose. It was really cold, really frosty. It was a clear, starry and moonlit night. So it was really exciting to start off with. And we went for a walk. We walked through the streets of our village, saw in through the windows, the Christmas trees with the lights sparkling, and we saw the sparkling of the frost and the light sprinkling of snow on the streets and on the trees and bushes and so on. And then we walked through a golf course, and then across the road, over a stile, and into the grounds of like a big manor house. And it is open to the public. So we climbed over a stile and walked into these grounds. And I think Dad and I and my brother, we were just sort of chatting away. So we were in our own company and just chatting away. And we were walking along a track, and there was a woodland. And then suddenly we heard a stirring in the woodland, and we all just stopped, and we looked, and there was a whole herd of deer. And closest to me, I would say about 15 foot, which would be about 5 meters away, was an enormous stag with enormous antlers. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and time stood still. And there was just a moment I could see him breathing, because he was breathing and snorts and like, and the steam coming out of his nose. And we were just standing there looking at each other. I didn't feel fear at all. I just felt the sheer magic of the moment. And I could tell all around him were the whole herd of deer, other males and the women, and a few babies that have been born early. And the whole ice and sparkle was just sparkling in the moonlit. It was just stunningly beautiful. And I think there must have been some communication between me and that stag. There was just a really special moment. And for me, since then, stags and deer have always been a real power animal for me from a shamanic point of view. They've always held great significance. And I'll carry that memory and the emotions and the sense of just being connected to all that is. And I think it was that felt so beautiful, and then I guess we just would have all just kind of said, oh, wow, isn't that amazing? And then carried on our walk, but it was a moment in time when time stood still. And I truly felt connected to everything. So that's my story. And hand over to Chris.
Okay, thank you, Becky. And like Becky, my story happened a long time ago. I think it was almost 20 years ago, but it was such a magical experience, and it seems fitting to share it here today. And so it happened in my life at a time when I had just made a really big decision that had entailed a huge leap of faith. And at the time I was driving to the airport, and it was raining pretty hard. And I turned the corner, and the rain stopped rather abruptly, and the sun came out, and the whole world turned into something that was just so amazing. It's actually kind of hard to explain because it was unlike anything that I've ever seen. But it actually felt like I had been like transported into another time and space. The colors changed. There were like forests along the side of the road, and there were these really amazing hues of blues and greens. And I remember some purples and pinks and colors that I had never seen before. And there were different textures, like the trees and bushes were shiny. It seemed like they were almost animated. And I don't know if anyone has seen the movies or the cartoons where the little like woodland creatures kind of flit along and they burst into song. And I was actually almost expecting that to happen. It was so amazing and magical. And then I didn't know what I was experiencing at the time or the reason for it, but I do remember feeling this incredible sense of lightness and just an absolute awe. And I have absolutely no idea how long my world was like that, but at some point I turned around another corner and the world just returned back to what was normal for me at that time. And I was in such an awe. I remember getting to the airport, but not remembering how. I didn't remember the rest of the drive at all. I just kind of magically appeared in the parking garage at the airport. And so looking back, I'm not sure whether I had been given like a peek into another dimension, or if I'd been given a glimpse into the idea that there's this whole other reality out there that's just waiting to be discovered. Or I had also thought that maybe it was a gift, like for me at the time, it felt like an acknowledgement that this huge leap of faith that I had taken was the right direction for me, in the direction that better served my authentic self, which looking back, it definitely was. And so regardless of the reason, it's that magical experience is something that I always carry with me, and it's one that I'll always treasure. So thank you. And I would like to hand over to Renee to share her story.
Wow, these are all such great stories. Thanks for having me. And wow, inspiration all over the place with you. Oh, it's awesome. My story is entitled The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. And it's a true story by me, and it happened this year. And I'm sure I'll remember it in 30 years. Becky remembers hers. We had just gotten back from a vacation that we really needed, and it was the end of November. And I was doing laundry and catching up on some things, and I had to sit down and look at a calendar because I had some bills coming due, so I was going to pay those. And while I was doing that, I flipped the calendar over to December to fill it out. Because it was the end of November, I thought I'll get a jump start and get it filled out. And when I flipped it over to December, it was almost like the December 25th jumped off the page, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's Christmas is like right around the corner. Wasn't it just Christmas last week? I had totally blocked Christmas from my mind, apparently. And here it was coming up in like 3 weeks. And So then I felt this rush of just pure anger about the whole day. And I need to preface this by saying, during one of my journeys down the many rabbit holes of my research, I had learned what the cabal really was. And so in years past, probably the last 2 or 3 years, I would just take away something that I used to do all the time, like sending Christmas cards. One year I quit doing that and I haven't done it since. Baking cookies and delivering them around the neighborhood, I quit doing it. We got to this year and we were literally down to putting up a tree and decorations. So I sat here with myself and thought, you know what? We're not doing it anymore. We're just not. It's funny to me how you can justify these thoughts that you have. It was a miracle, but yet, how do I even phrase this? So I sat here and I thought, aren't I supposed to be the change that I want to see in the world? How do we do that if we don't step up to the plate? So my husband came home and I proclaimed that we're not having Christmas this year. We're just not doing it. Now, he's awake and aware, but only because he lives with me and I've drug him kicking and screaming the whole way, but now he's very malleable. And he looked at me like, he did listen, but I just poured it all out. And I said, this is why we can't do this anymore. And he said, I understand. But I knew he really didn't understand because the feeling I got was, and Christmas is his favorite. It always has been. But that was it. In my mind, I made the decision. We were done. We're not having it. So it just, I didn't do well with it. I slept on it and I still was feeling like something was off. So I turned to my CC family. And the first person that I talked to was having the same issue I was having. She basically stated, I'm glad to hear you say this because this is how I'm feeling this year. And I am not doing it either. And so misery loves company. And I felt pretty good about myself and my decision then. And then after we discussed the situation, I kind of thought, well, see, maybe this is what we're supposed to do. I mean, after all, it's not going to be easy to save humanity, right? We're going to have these moments where we make these decisions and they're going to be hard and we're going to take slings and arrows and we just have to do this. But I still didn't feel right about it. So then I talked to another CC member and was reminded that everything we do has to do with intention and what our intention behind that is. So we make every experience what we want because we are creators. We are part of source. So then I felt about this small. And I thought, wow, yeah, I didn't feel so good after that. So I sat with myself and I decided to consult my staff. I call them my staff. A lot of people call them angels, helpers, higher self. I call mine my staff. So I was ready to go into a session with my staff and get congratulations and encouragement because, you're the leader and you're doing these good things for humanity, right? And it did not happen that way. My staff would not communicate with me at all. In fact, they formed a circle around me, took one step back. And for me, that means you need to go back to the drawing board. They won't even give me their input at that point because they know that I know that I need to go back to the drawing board, which I did. And then I just suddenly realized how I not only fell off the 5D wagon, I literally dove off head first and face planted back in 3D in the blink of an eye, didn't realize it. It was amazing to me because I thought I was pretty grounded in the 5D and I wasn't, and it can happen. So I was pretty hard on myself. I'm like, who am I, a dictator? I just dictated that we're not having Christmas. I didn't ask anybody's opinion. I just made this statement, how unfair, how uncompassionate, how unempathetic, it was everything that I don't want to be. So my husband came home from work that night and I said, guess what? We're having Christmas. He's like, whoa, wait, what? And I explained about the muck that I had been through that day and the previous day. It actually was a couple days. And we decided that in this house, we would now have a celebration of life, of all life at Christmas. We no longer have a Christmas tree. We have a tree of light, is what we call it. We decorated the entire home inside and out, even added some things this year. I sent Christmas cards to every single person in my address book, which, yes, I'm old and I have a physical address book. A lot of kids will look and say, what? Address book, what's that? We delivered cookies. We baked all one weekend and we delivered cookies. We sent packages away for people we couldn't hand deliver to. We had a great celebration with family, and it was really important for me to be, as a coordinator, we have members reach out to us a lot for support, and to know that we could reach back out to them when we need them was huge in this process for me. So with that said, I am going to try to make Christmas what we want it every year, adding a little more, a little more, a little more. I had one more thing to say, and it was really very important, and I have lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, I almost missed it. To think I almost missed it was one of the most important statements, because it turned into one of the best Christmases I think we've ever had. So that's my story.
Thank you, Rennie. That's amazing. And it does show that you went through a deep process. You sort of hit a crisis and you were forced to think about it, and you went through the process. And it's different. I mean, Christmas brings up so many emotions and feelings for many people. For many people, it's, God, there's so much hard work involved in everything I've got to do. And for others, it's sheer excitement, and for others it's remembering loss and so on, and there's all sorts of things. But as someone who, we were obviously raised with the Christian side of it within the UK. There's always a celebration of the birth of Jesus, a really wonderful, amazing person who contributed a lot to humanity. And I think you're absolutely right when you talk about intention, is that we put the intention into how we create our own personal Christmas. And I think it has the key factors of giving, sharing, and joy and love. And if we can put these out, then I think that we get them back. So I think that's beautiful that you received that in big doses. You got a lot of love and joy back. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, so thank you everyone for sharing your stories. I've absolutely loved this podcast. It's been a real special one. And one of the many qualities I love about us human beings is that we are multidimensional. We can be incredibly sensitive yet powerful, loving, caring, and creative. And we have the ability to affect others in a profound way. If we all use this ability to create and connect and work together in a truly positive way, looking past perceived barriers, differences, difficulties, we can awaken the divine spark in others and help them nurture and develop this divine spark. I see this almost like Christmas lights being turned on and radiating outwards, giving a magnificent display of lights. Let's switch on our inner light and shine. And Jeff, it's now time for you to wrap up with the song "Oh Holy Night," which is one of my absolute favorites. Thank you very much, Jeff.
And it's one of ours too. That's one of the, I think, the most powerful Christmas carol, and I think the words speak volumes to it. So thank you for asking me to do it. Chris, you said something about raising vibration. I think that's one of the things I love to do with this, is try to raise vibration. So, oh holy night. Oh holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Saviour's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared, and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices, O night divine, O night when Christ was born, O night divine, O night divine.
Oh, wow, Jeff, thank you. That was amazing. And we appreciate you sharing your beautiful voice with us. That was a true gift.
My joy.
We would also like to thank all of our guests for joining our podcast today, and all of our viewers for tuning in. I can't even talk after Jeff's beautiful song. I'm kind of still in that awe space. But anyway, thank you all, and we wish you a bright, beautiful, and sparkly start to your new year.